So I grabbed a handful of my patients and tested it out, and bam, it worked. And like, it worked fast. 70% of the people reversed their diabetes. That technically means they came off all their medicine after just 8 weeks. Why wasn't I taught this in medical school? I'm just telling people to change their grocery list. But it's the best medicine I've ever done. I just don't write prescriptions anymore.
What do you think about big pharma? Because I feel like you're kind of going against what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. Unfortunately, big pharma has a huge influence in the medical system. I'm at a position in my life, frankly, Lily, I don't care. And I'm not here to serve the drug company. You really don't want to be on insulin. In fact, it's a dirty little secret. You do not actually improve your clinical outcomes if you have to lower your A1C by giving a type 2 diabetic insulin. But yeah, I had a drug rep come up to me who's selling insulin. Hey, doc, when are you gonna get another prescription out there? What do you think about that? I looked at him and go, I'm not gonna write another prescription for insulin again. And I haven't put anybody on insulin in the past 5 years.
Dr. Steve Riggs, could you just give some background as to who you are for people who may not be familiar with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Steve Riggs. I'm a med-peds physician, so it means I'm board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics. And I'm also board certified in obesity medicine and advanced ketogenic nutrition, and I'm a metabolic health practitioner. So for the first 30 years of my practice, like, I practiced primary care, internal medicine, and pediatrics. And I was happily going about my life thinking I was doing the right thing, treating patients and everything like that. And actually, like a lot of good things in my life, my wife, she one day said she wanted to be a health coach. And so in the process of that, she ran across Jason Fung's book, actually, The Obesity Code. And so she said, hey, put your doctor hat on and read this book, because I think it's interesting. It makes a lot of sense. So I pick it up. And I'll be honest with you, I was super skeptical because, like, somebody's found the code for obesity, like, right, that can happen. And to be honest, at that point, I had like zero success in helping people lose weight, really. So I pick it up though, and I start reading it, and it's a low carb approach, and people lose weight, but every diet book tells you people lose weight. But then Jason talked about people reversing their diabetes. And I was like, no. I'm like, that's what I do. I am a clinician, okay? I take care of metabolically broken people, many people with diabetes. To be honest with you, man, up to that point, I'd almost never seen anybody reverse their diabetes, and almost never took people off their medication. We just kept adding more and more and more and more till eventually they got an insulin, and then frankly had a heart attack and died. It was that I thought was managing diabetes. But fortunately, I said, okay, I don't believe that, but that's actually testable. So I grabbed a handful of my patients and tested it out, and bam, it worked. And like, it worked fast. And that's when, Lily, my world turned completely upside down. I was like, wait a second. Is this really safe? Is it really that effective?
A low carb diet.
A low carb diet, yes. And so I did a deep dive in the medical literature, and sure enough, the answers to those questions, as you and I both know now, are yes and yes. And I found actually the science behind this was very robust. Why wasn't I taught this in medical school? So I did that. And then I started incorporating it into my practice. And it worked really well, not only for diabetes and weight loss, but fatty liver disease, neurologic disorders, dementia, epilepsy, GI disorders, inflammatory bowel disease, PCOS. I've had women who got their menses back, got pregnant. It just goes on and on and on. And this needs to be standard of care, okay?
And just to clarify, that this is a low carb ketogenic approach.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, what we call now therapeutic carbohydrate reduction. Keto kind of triggers people,
Yep.
as in fact, I always tell my patients, okay, we're going to do the ketogenic diet. Don't tell anybody you're doing keto, okay? Because they're going to think you're going to die, and especially your cardiologist. Try to use the words like therapeutic carbohydrate reduction, and there's a spectrum there: carnivore, keto, low carb. It's not one size fits all. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. But yeah, I tell people try not to use the word keto. Then I write a book called Keto MD, so I just lay it out there. But that's me.
And that's what I also tell people is it's not even a low carb diet. It's just people are eating so many carbs that it
Right.
seems like a crazy low carb diet when it's really hard to become high carb when you're eating whole foods. So if I say like just say you're eating real food, then it makes it less weird versus if you say I'm
Yeah.
doing keto, I'm doing carnivore, then people are like, whoa, like are you okay?
Yeah.
And just saying, oh yeah, I'm trying not to have like as much pizza and beer, and it's like, oh okay.
Exactly. Like you say, the really super crazy thing is the standard American diet. 50 to 60% of the average American's diet is made up of ultra processed food. 20 to 25% of calories is in the form of high fructose corn syrup and added sugar. That's what's insane. I mean, it's just wrong. I mean, the dietary guidelines are there for the normal American, but they recognize that it's only for healthy people. Well, guess what? Only 7% of our population is metabolically healthy. 7%. That's ridiculous. So the USD dietary guidelines, you can throw those out for 93% of the people. But the problem is everything from the military to your daycare center to nursing homes to hospitals, they all have to meet those dietary guidelines. The lowest carb diet I can order in the hospital is 45 grams per meal, right?
Wow.
That's nuts. So I have to tell my patients, look, ignore the menu. Just tell them, give me double meat, give me like 4 eggs and bacon, hold the toast and oatmeal and the orange juice. I mean, you just have to like tell them you gotta take the reins of this because unfortunately, most hospitals are not going to help you. And all my diabetics go out of control, get on insulin in the hospital. They come back out. We have to fix them again. I mean, we call our program Living by Design because, initially a lot of people think, oh, keto, that's some fad diet, right? Well, no, it's actually the most studied diet on the planet. There's more studies on the ketogenic diet than any other dietary intervention. Created basically at Mayo Clinic, which is just north of me in 1921. So it's been around over 100 years. We know a lot about it. It's not a fad. Like I often tell people, like I don't strong arm anybody into this. It's a lifestyle. You got to want to do it. I'm not going to try. I can't force anybody to do it. And it's the same with family members. But I tell you what, when you lose that 20, 40, 50, 100 pounds, when your diabetes goes away, when you're coming off medication, when you feel great, when your activity level goes up, your mental clarity is good, sometimes they turn and look at you and go, what was that diet you're doing now? I mean, and the wheels start turning, and I see that happen all the time.
So when you said that they're getting off their medications, how does that impact like your interactions with insurance companies, or what do you think about big pharma? Because I feel like you're
Yeah.
kind of going against what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. Unfortunately, big pharma has a huge influence in the medical system. The big problem there. But our mission is to help people with their health, right? And to get them off of that. I'm at a position in my life, frankly, Lily, I don't care. They can't hurt me, so honestly, you just got to do the right thing. And I'm not here to serve the drug company. That's ridiculous. They make tons of money. I'm here to serve the patient in front of me. That's for sure. And sometimes I use the medications for sure. And sometimes they're life-saving miracles. So, but they have to be appropriately used, not just hey, we're going to treat, America right now is trying to treat their obesity epidemic with everybody. Let's just put everybody on a GLP-1. Why not? Isn't that a great idea? That is not a great idea for a lot of reasons. Now, do they have their place? Yeah, you bet they do. But they need to be properly sized for that patient. But yeah, I had a drug rep come up to me who's selling insulin. Hey, doc, when are you gonna get another prescription out there? It's up. What do you think about that? I looked at him and go, I'm not gonna write another prescription for insulin again. And I haven't put anybody on insulin in the past 5 years. And he just kind of looked at me and go, oh, okay, thank you. And that's true. I mean, for type 2 diabetes, I haven't put anybody on insulin. In fact, I consider insulin contraindicated for type 2 diabetes for the vast majority of people with type 2 diabetes. There are rare exceptions to that, but that's basically true, especially early on. You should not. My goal is to get people off insulin, sulfonylureas, and especially, and if we have to use some of the other medications, okay, but you really don't want to be on insulin. That just drives up there. In fact, it's a dirty little secret. You do not actually improve your clinical outcomes if you have to lower your A1C by giving a type 2 diabetic insulin. Even though your blood sugars come down, if you're having to use insulin to do that, it's not helping because insulin is the problem, right? Type 2 diabetics, they produce plenty of insulin. I measure it all the time. They produce tons of insulin. That's not the problem. The problem is they have insulin resistance. That is the thing that's driving all the metabolic mayhem that I see. I mean, almost 90% of us, Lily, are dying from non-communicable diseases, okay? That's 50% from the big two, cancer and heart disease. The rest of us are going to die from dementia, diabetes and obesity-related complications, chronic lung disease, et cetera. What drives all that? For the most part, it's insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia.
So can we elaborate more on that for people who are like, okay, wait, so I don't want to have insulin resistance. What does that mean? What should I be doing? What should I do today to not land as one of the people who are struggling with insulin?
Yeah. Okay. So insulin is secreted by your pancreas, a gland in your abdomen, right? GI system, and it goes up in a pulsatile fashion depending on what you eat, right? So if you eat carbohydrates, sugars, starches, breads, grains, et cetera, it goes up a lot. If you eat protein, it goes up a little bit. If you eat fat, it doesn't really go up at all. But in today's food environment, because as we were talking about, we eat an insane amount of carbohydrates and processed food. Our insulin levels are always up, always up, always up. So your pancreas has to produce more and more insulin, more and more insulin. That's insulin resistance because your cells are like, stop. We don't want all this carbohydrate coming in, so they get resistant. Pancreas says, okay, but she's eating more donuts and bagels, so now I got to produce more insulin. Cells say, they get more resistant. Pancreas is more insulin, they get more resistant. So this war of insulin resistance is going on years, actually sometimes decades, before eventually your pancreas can't keep up, your blood sugars go sky high, and your doctor says, oh, you've got type 2 diabetes. What do? We'll put you on insulin. Oh, okay. So we're back to this again. And you start with a low dose of insulin, maybe 10 units of Lantus at night or something, no big deal. And then you need more, and then you need more, and then you need more and more. And pretty soon you're getting mealtime insulin and everything else. And lo and behold, your blood sugars aren't really that well controlled. You develop heart disease and you have a stroke or heart attack, and that's the way it goes. Insulin resistance is the thing that tells me more about somebody's metabolic health than it's not, forget your LDL, okay? I mean, that doesn't even track with heart disease, okay? But insulin resistance absolutely does, okay? It blows LDL out of the water. It tracks with diabetes, it tracks with obesity, it tracks with everything else. And oh, by the way, just plain old mortality, death, the higher your insulin resistance. So how do you measure it? Talk your physician into ordering a fasting insulin. It's available, it's pretty easy to do. And in America, we use mass units of milligrams per deciliter. So you take your insulin level, fasting, times your fasting blood sugar, and divide that number by 405. And when you do that, you'll get a number. If it's less than 1, like probably yours is, because you look super fit, great. You are very insulin sensitive. That's awesome. Great. If you're between 1 and 2.9, you go from mild to moderate insulin resistance. And if you're above 3 or above, that's high insulin resistance. That's the trouble. And I'll tell you right now, just about everybody I see has insulin resistance. It is everywhere.
Well, I was going to ask if you could put a percentage on, let's just stick with the US population, but what percentage of people in the US would you guess have insulin resistance?
Depends on how you define that. But if you look at, a lot of studies look at insulin resistance as being 2 or above, 2.5 or above, depending on where you mark that line. But you're talking at least 70% of the population,
Wow, okay. And to clarify for people who, when they hear the word carbohydrates, now does that mean pizzas, breads, and brownies? But does that also mean fruit and like potatoes and vegetable, like carrots have carbs? So is it all carbohydrates across the board? People should not eat potatoes, or is it, limiting how much of these things you have?
That's a great question. Not all carbs are bad. Okay, so there's good carbs, there's bad carbs, there's good fats, there's bad fats. Protein's always good, basically. But the carbs, go back and forth. So certainly the worst carbs In terms of metabolic health, I'd put fructose, high fructose corn syrup. That would be at the top of the list of, metabolic mayhem. And that is found in just about all processed foods. So if you look at barbecue sauce and everything else, you look at the labels, you're going to see high fructose corn syrup everywhere. So that is certainly bad. Sugar, for sure, refined flour. So that would be right up there. And so those would go up there. Middle of the road are more starches, so sweet potato, things like that. And then farther down on the low glycemic index things are things that are fiber, which generally isn't absorbed by people. It feeds your microbiome, some benefit, kind of controversial in the low carb space. We can address that. But really, that's kind of the spectrum on that side. The other side is the genetics of the people involved. So there's a lucky, probably 30% of the population, they can eat whatever they want. And they stay as thin as a rail. They never get sick. Everybody hates them, but they are what they are. They don't understand what the problem is while they're slugging down Cokes and everything else. But most people can't. I mean, obviously, obesity rates are 42% across this country, 70% are overweight. Diabetes has gone up 900% in the past 50 years. Okay, there's a problem here. And it's all a genetic ability or inability to handle a carbohydrate load. Okay. So I've got some patients, they're way over here. Like if they're in the same room with a carbohydrate, they get type 2 diabetes. Okay. So the answer to your question for that person is yes, they have to be very strict. Their carb threshold, if you will, is very low and they're metabolically broken, right? So they've got type 2 diabetes, very high insulin resistance. So anything they eat that's carbohydrate related is going to be a problem. And there's other people where they're very insulin sensitive, thin, athletic, doing fine. Avoid sugar and processed food. God bless you. See you later. You can pretty much eat anything else you want.
If you ever experience headaches, leg cramps, heart palpitations, muscle cramping, fatigue, low energy, and you feel overall dehydrated, then check out Element Electrolytes, who is today's video sponsor. They've got really clean electrolytes with no artificial food dyes, no colors, no high fructose corn syrup, and they have the science-backed ratios of sodium, potassium, and magnesium that can help our cells stay more hydrated and can help our heart health. I personally have been drinking Element for several years now. I just rip open a packet, throw it in my water or milk, even my yogurt. I put it in avocados sometimes, and it's just a really convenient packet that you can take with you to work, take it traveling, or you can just add that mixture into some water to get those essential minerals we need for our hydration. You can get 8 free packets of Element's most popular flavors with any order using the link in the video description or by going to drinkelement.com/Lillie Kane. They also offer a money-back guarantee. So if you try it and you don't like it, you can get your money back.
When I started this 8 years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting David Unwin. He's a British physician, got into the low carb space. And David told me, he said, hey, when you get into this, track your patients. Just set up a simple spreadsheet and just track your patients. And I was curious. Well, 1,200 plus patients later, I've got this massive amount of data. And if you want, I can show you some of that.
Yes, let's look at it.
So this is a typical group of people and their weight losses. And not everybody does keto for weight loss, right? We got people doing this for cancer, for dementia, for other reasons, but pretty much everybody loses some weight. So after 8 weeks, this is an 8-week intervention. Average weight loss is 16 pounds. Waist circumference goes down because visceral fat is going down. Body fat is being lost. And by the way, we're not losing muscle. This is body fat. 95% of them who retested at the end did not have food addiction after just 8 weeks. This is kind of crazy. People coming to me and saying, yeah, I don't even crave ice cream anymore or something like that. And even myself, like I was a cookie-aholic, I think. And now, I mean, I could have a cookie. I don't have diabetes or anything, but it's like, I don't crave them and it doesn't really do it for me. I'd rather have a ribeye. This is an intervention that basically gets the sugar and everything out of their system and it allows them time to heal. This person is on 12 units of Lantus, which isn't long-acting insulin, and metformin, which is a pill. A1C is 12.9, which is terrible. Okay, this person has very poorly controlled diabetes And in this, their average glucose is 222. This is them after the ketogenic diet was implemented, and they're off all insulin, and their repeat A1C is 5.7. Amazing. And now their blood sugar dropped from 222 to 123 just by changing their grocery list. That's all we did. Let me show you. This is an actual picture of my head exploding when I first saw this, and I could not believe it. This person had diabetes for well over 20 years. She was on insulin for over 20 years. Okay. This is not supposed to happen, but she was on 175 units of insulin a day. Also, she was on dulaglutide, metformin. Blood sugars are terrible. You can see the results. She's come off all insulin here, 175 units of insulin, and her blood sugars are all in target range.
And how fast did that happen?
So this actually happens within weeks. Most patients, in fact, I can show you 81% of them are off insulin within 2 months. Now, the older they are, the longer they've been, and the higher the dosage of insulin, might take longer. But generally, we're talking sometimes days, sometimes within a short period of time, but definitely within weeks. With all this about diabetes reversal and people coming off medicine, the last thing I want is for people to just stop their medication from watching this. And I've had people end up in the ER and have all sorts of problems thinking they can just do that on their own. Don't do that, especially if you're on insulin, sulfonylureas, blood pressure medication, serious things like that. Please see your doctor. Tell them what you're doing. You have to taper these medications appropriately. You need a medical professional to help you do that. So just a little plug for that. So this is all the people. 55 out of 78 people with diabetes reversed their diabetes. Now that technically means they came off all their medicine, but metformin possibly, and their A1Cs were under 6.5 after just 8 weeks of an intervention. I'm just telling people to change their grocery list. But it's the best medicine I've ever done. I just don't write prescriptions anymore.
So what exactly is on this grocery list?
Well, whole foods for sure, right? So, and what does that mean? If your food has a label on it, think of it as a warning label. It should not. That's a steak, that's broccoli, that's an onion. Okay, that's real food right there. So that's number one, right? Avoid sugar and processed food like the devil. And processed food is anything made in a factory. These foods have the right mouthfeel. It goes down right. They have the right crunch. And food scientists have had 50 years to create all this processed food to make it highly addicting just to make profit. And it's that way on purpose. Remember the old Lay's commercial? Bet you can't eat just one. That's what this is about. So you want to avoid those things. 80% in your grocery store in the middle is just all basically junk. You're going to shop the perimeter of your store, number one. So what am I talking about? So when I tell people to going on a low carb diet or ketogenic diet, I tell them no GPS. So G stands for grains. So anything made with corn, wheat, rice. So breads and cereals are kind of off the plate. P is pasta and potatoes. They're just chains of starch, and they just immediately turn into sugar in your bloodstream and spike your insulin. And then S is sugar, and that you want to avoid. So those are the foods you want to avoid, and you want to get the whole real foods out there.
I'm wondering how you get your client or your patients to make that transition and that jump, because especially for, let's say you have a spouse come in, but their other spouse is not on board with wanting to make the switch.
Yeah.
How do they, that's the hang up I have. I have some clients who come to me, I can get them on board, but they're like, Lily, I keep falling back into it because I still have all the stuff in my house.
Right. I run into that problem all the time. We tell people, look, your environment's going to trump willpower every time. Okay. Yeah. In fact, willpower is kind of overrated. And if you study people who have a lot of willpower, it's because they need it less. They put themselves in positions where they don't need to white knuckle it, So we say, look, clean out your environment. So when we have a list, here's the stuff, usually sugar, processed food, the chips and breads and cereals and everything else. Just clean it out. When my wife and I started this 8 years ago, we literally put a garbage can in our kitchen and we filled it. I mean, it was overflowing and took it out, And as a pediatrician, I tell my patients, look, sugar's not love. Your kids don't need it either, right? And so the people I'm talking with usually have type 2 diabetes and serious obesity. And I'm like, look, they've got your genes. Do you want them to grow up healthy or not? This is just a whole foods healthy diet. It's what my grandparents ate, certainly back in the day. And that's really what we're trying to get back to. Okay, yeah, but I'm living with a roommate. I can't just remove all their food out of the house. Can't kick them out, so what do I do? And then you had to kind of brainstorm and say, wait, let's partition your stuff, okay? So at least their stuff, their junk goes into this area, this closet. It's walled off. You don't go there, kind of thing, and it's clear. I really encourage people to meal plan, meal plan, meal plan. So we give our patients who are starting with this we call it a 2-week keto kickstart. Okay, so this is the food you're going to eat, and this is how you make it. And here's your recipes. Here's your shopping list. Okay, go. And there's supposed to be leftovers, so you're only cooking once. So your leftovers becomes your lunch the next day. And then if you want breakfast, have bacon and eggs, but it's not cereal, toast, and juice. Okay, and so start with a meal plan. There's great keto cookbooks out there. I would grab some of those and then start, getting your favorites. A lot of online resources. We share a lot of those practical things with people. So there's really great ways of doing that.
And do you have any thoughts on seed oils, or is that not relevant?
Gosh, yeah. So seed oils are, pathetically pro-inflammatory. Corn oil, soybean oil, again, they're cheap. They're available everywhere. We've seen from the, certain like the Sydney Diet Heart Study and others that when you substitute a bunch of seed oils in for the person's fat choice, their heart disease goes up, cancer goes up, inflammatory conditions go up. It's a horrible thing. So avoid seed oils as much as you can. What should you use? How about lard? How about butter? If your fat was grown on a farm, then it's good. If it was made in a factory and you need like benzene to extract seed oils, okay? These people wear respirators in these factories and stuff like that. Not a good idea. And trans fats are terrible. They've been banned finally from the United States, but you can still get trans fats. How? You heat up seed oils. So everyone's heating up seed oil on their frying pan. They're creating their own trans fats right there, which we know are deleterious for you. So stop it. Use something like avocado oil if you need a high smoke point. Again, butter, lard, duck fat. Olive oil is a very wonderful heart healthy fat. So we've got wonderful natural alternatives. Those are the things we need to use.
Maybe you should put your GPS as being sugar and seed oils.
Oh.
Because at least I've talked with other doctors and healthcare providers who would say that seed oils don't spike your insulin per se, but they impact insulin resistance through inflammation.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very pro-inflammatory. Again, they change your cell membrane structure and alter your biochemistry. So I think there's plenty of evidence and good alternatives that we know are healthful that we should just make that change for sure.
What are 3 things you do as a doctor to make sure that you don't get insulin resistance and that you maintain a healthy body?
I think number one, following a low carb diet is excellent. Whole foods diet, for sure, I do that. I try to avoid the processed food as much as possible. To be honest, do I ever have an ice cream cone? Yes, I do. And I've got 12 grandkids and, we occasionally will do that. But, it's rare, right? So that I think is the poison's in the dose, as Paracelsus said. So, I mean, that's number one. Number 2 is exercise. I'm an exercise fanatic. Resistance training is really good. So I think it builds not only muscle, but BDNF for your brain, brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's great for mental health and so forth. And then handling sleep and stress. Those are huge. And so I commonly see those really derail my patients. They're sleeping crappy and, they're under a lot of stress. And honestly, man, we need to unplug. We need to, disengage from a lot of busy activities and frantic things. The world actually will revolve without you. You need to take a break sometimes. So I think learning how to relax and sleep well is really key to our health.
You can find Dr. Steve Riggs's book, website, and contact information in the video description. And if you're looking for some carnivore, keto, low carb recipes, these are my top 3 favorites in this video here. Don't be silly, subscribe to Lillie, and I'll see you soon.